Oh my gosh, look at that. We got people waiting and everything. We're excited to tell you about the Ordo Fanaticus Cascade Conflict GT that I went to last week. And I brought Jose Cano's list with a few variations, and I ended up winning it, which is super exciting because I haven't won a tournament ever before. I'm a pretty new player, so this was an exciting turn of events, especially with a list I'd never run before. So neat. Um, Thank you everybody for joining me, and we'll just get straight into it. How about that? So, like I said, this was the Ordo Fanaticus Cascade Conflict 5 RTT. They have a lot of tournaments here right now in the Portland metro area, and I'm looking to take advantage of that because why wouldn't you? Get a move on. All right, so the tournament, it was only 6 players, so very, very small. It was 1 weeks ago, according to my slide here. Player placed terrain, but with some twists. They're working out some local tournament terrain rules, and I guess one of the things that they're playing with right now, and this isn't just Ordo Fanaticus. This is a whole bunch of the groups in the area that actually host tournaments. They're trying to decide on what their standardized terrain is, and we played with a little less terrain than we usually would. And it was a 3-round event, and it was with the Nephilim GT pack, of course. My list, 2,000 points of Prescient Brethren. Like I said, this is basically just me taking Jose Cano's list, making 2 very slight changes to it, and then running it. So it's a Mortal Wounds Libby, a Tech Marine. I put Prestiged Paralysis on him instead of a hammer on the Paragon for the Paladins, which came in handy. He has Gate and Divination. Grandmaster Dread Knight with all the normal fixins. 3 strike squads with swords. This is also the only difference between my list and Jose's. Is he ran halberds, and I just don't have strike models with halberds, so I ran swords. We have an Apothecary with Unyielding Anvil and Warp Shaping. 5-man Paladin squad with Armored Resilience, Ethereal Castigation, and Halberds. A 4-man Servitor squad just to be action monkeys. 2 5-man Interceptor squads, 3 normal DKs, and 1 Rhino. The Rhino is there for all kinds of crazy move block shenanigans, and mainly, or every single game, my Interceptor started in there. We have a distinct advantage over normal Space Marines in that we can actually put our super fast infantry in a Rhinos where things like Vanguard vets can't actually go into them. So that first turn move is a 15-inch move, and as you'll see in my games, that was actually pretty massive. Round 1, I played Necrons. My opponent was Luke. We played Recover the Relics. My secondaries were Teleport Assault, Purifying Ritual, and Banners. He took all of the Necron ones, which I'd never played into before, but Code of Combat, Treasures of Aeons, and Ancient Machinery. I won Attacker Defender. I chose to defend to drop my terrain first. That's very, very common, because if you can put down a big piece of terrain first, you can screen out where they can put terrain. So it's usually pretty common to see if you win the attacker defender role to choose to defend. I won first turn roll off, which honestly I didn't want. I wanted to go second in this matchup, and then I put a bunch of my army into Deep Strike because again I was kind of hoping that I would go second. He ran a dynasty I've never played before. This was not a meta list in any way, I don't think. But then again, I'm not an expert on the Necron army either. He did have a 5-up Feel No Pain to Mortals. He could reroll 1 wound for each unit in shooting and melee. And he could use 2 command protocols instead of 1, and he healed an extra from living metal. He brought the Silent King, and this is the first time I'd ever even seen that model in person, which was super cool. A command barge, 3 5-mans of Immortals, the Nightbringer, I think it was a 5, maybe a 6-man Lich Guard, a 6-man of the melee Scorpex, a 6-man of the Scarabs, 1 6-man of Wraiths, and then some heavy destroyers. So this was the mission. It's a 6 objective mission. Hold 1, hold 2, hold more. And if you can see here, the 3-inch bubble from where the objective is means that the control range for these no man's land ones are actually right up against your deployment zone. So it's really easy to actually grab these with anything in the game other than a fortification. And then you get extra points if you kill stuff. However, you don't gain a CP unless you hold an objective in no man's land. And since neither he nor I had a pregame move in turn 1, we didn't start with extra. This was my deployment. You'll be able to see in some of the other photos where the terrain placement was. By the way, the Tabletop Battles app has an option to remind you to take photos. It's very useful. I didn't do it for this game for some reason, so I have the photos I have. But effectively, everything was completely screened out from all the ruins on the table. Anything that wasn't was behind dense cover. And then also I had foretelling of locust. So when I realized I was gonna go first, I put my non Grandmaster Dread Knight right on the line. I had my Grandmaster on the line anyway, because if he decided to shoot him, I was just gonna bounce him anyway. And if he didn't, that means he's as far forward as possible if I went second, so he would have more movement anyway, because remember, foretelling does not work on characters, only core, which means you also can't use it on a Rhino, which would be amazing, but you can't. All right, this was his deployment. He had all these wraiths kind of hanging out to dry, along with his Lich Guard here. The Silent King was too far back to actually shoot, but this is gonna come into play later. All right, so turn 1, I started in Tide of Shadows, because I wanted to be able to take his turn 2 shooting, because I didn't think he would be able to charge me on turn, or I wanted to take his turn 1 shooting, because I didn't think he could get within charge range if I actually measured and played right. I moved my DKs up to the middle of the board. I put the Grandmaster out in the middle of nowhere with no dense cover. I wanted to bait out being shot, and then if he didn't shoot, he was safe. So like Servant of the Throne and the Sigil of Exigence are just so fun for those mental shenanigans you can do. Because of that 15-inch move right out of my deployment zone here, I could actually send one of these squads interceptors all the way from here to here. I couldn't control this, but because of where, or so from here to threatening this objective here, I couldn't take it, but he would have to react if he didn't want to instantly lose it. So that's what I did with the interceptors. The Paladins moved up, raised a banner. The Apothecary cast purifying ritual, so on and so forth. The interesting stuff was my Grandmaster went absolutely apeshit in shooting. I used the Prescient Brethren strat. I had empiric amplification on that unit of wraiths, and I just completely wiped them off the map. So that was 240 points I killed immediately. The other DK killed one of the destroyers, but he brought it straight back on his turn. He came up in a real flood. Just his whole army basically moved up, except his scarabs, which he left in the backfield to kind of screen me out. He fired at my Grandmaster, which is exactly what I wanted. I had told him pre-game that, you know, this is how this works. So he knew it. I then bounced him away behind a big ruin, able to threaten his other objective in no man's land on his side. And then the heavy destroyer shot, and the Silent King also shot, which I made a lot of saves on this shooting. I have no idea how. It was just the dice gods were in my favor. Tide helped me out with extra armor saves on my infantry, and then just the -1 to be shot is like so good. Boom. So turn 2, he realized his mistake when he shot at my Grandmaster, and I just bounced him out of the way. His return fire was pretty bad overall. I think I lost an interceptor or so up there on his side objective, but all he had moved up there was some immortals, so I knew I could get off a charge and all that jazz. I brought down everything from deep strike except the strike squad, which was probably one of my mistakes. I probably should have dropped those on his side of the board because he left some space open, and I could have at least threw out a unit there that he would have had to do something about. The things on the board of his that I'm afraid of now are the Silent King, obviously. That guy is an absolute menace. And by the way, he started with 7 CP because of the Silent King just like gives you 3 or something. It was bonkers. So the Grandmaster moves up around one of his ruins to threaten his no man's land objective. I had Paladins move up as well. They were going to make a charge into the immortals on that objective because his melee destroyers were right there, and they're pretty fast, and they were going to come right through that ruin, charge, and just pick up my Grandmaster. So I needed them to get in the way and move block the destroyers, which luckily they did. It was great. They rolled in there. They grabbed that objective. They consolidated out in a string and protected my Grandmaster. I switched to Tide of Convergence. I cast Purifying on every one that I held at the time, which was 3 different, and I only got 2 points. This is a theme you'll see throughout the whole event. Most of the times that I cast Purifying, I was holding 3, and I only managed to get off 2, which with a Warp Charge 5 is pretty weird, but whatever, that's the dice. And then Armored Resilience was on the Paladins, and now they are move blocking my, or they are body blocking my Grandmaster. So I think I'm in a pretty good spot at this point. So you can see here, I have my Grandmaster in the bottom. He taken like 1 mortal wound from a Votann power, I think. So he's on 12. Here's my Paladins here. Here's the Nightbringer. Here's all his destroyers, which I'm honestly frightened of. They are gnarly. All my Dread Knights are here now. I have an Interceptor squad up here being annoying and trying to take this objective off of him. So what he does is exactly what I thought. He turns his entire melee part of his army and rushes towards me with some character support in the Command Barge and the Technomancer. He rushes in there. He charges. The Silent King and the Lich Guard move up to the other. So these guys move this way up north to come take this objective back from me. The Nightbringer's Votann powers go off, causing a whole 1 mortal wound to the Paladins. Everything else is saved or just didn't go off. The Silent King easily just offs one of my DKs in shooting phase. There's no other real shooting that happens. There's like some mortal fire that doesn't do anything, but the interesting part is the melee destroyers and the Command Barge go into my Paladins. I had 2 CP banked, knowing that they were going to try this move so that I could interrupt, because I also knew he was going to move the Nightbringer to go into my Grandmaster. So whether he fought with the Destroyers first or the Nightbringer first, I could interrupt and at least put some damage onto the Nightbringer. Luke fights with the Nightbringer first, which I expected. I thought he was trying to just get rid of my Grandmaster. He rolls absolutely terribly on damage. It's something like, I don't remember what the Nightbringer does. It's really, really good, but he rolls really, really poorly on damage. And I think I live with like 1 or 2 wounds, maybe 3, but he barely lives. I interrupt, and the Paladins absolutely pulverize that entire melee unit. Like, it's just nar. The whole unit gets picked up immediately. Paladins in Tide of Convergence are really good. Hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s is super, super good. So turn 3, I spend 1 CP to fall back and shoot and charge with my Grandmaster. I'm just out of engagement range for a guaranteed charge. On this turn, I want to have all my psychic powers, my charge, my guns, and my melee go off to just kill this stupid Nightbringer. The rest of my army mostly stays where they are. I did bring up another Interceptor squad to support the one up north that was being whittled down. And because I had moved my Paladin Blob and my Mortal Wounds Libby and my Apothecary in this turn off of one of my objectives, I actually brought my Strike Squad down to hold it. The Mortal Wound Libby goes off and does a ton of damage to his Command Barge, but he heals a lot of it. I smite with my Grandmaster, or I think I smote, and I did 2 damage with the smite into the Nightbringer. I was really hoping for 3 on this one, but you know how that goes. The Grandmaster fires everything at the Nightbringer, so that's all 3 of his wounds down. The normal DKs go into the Silent King, which kill the 2 plinths, which are their high strength one-shot anti-tank guns. So I'm feeling a lot better about my Dread Knights at that point. I charge into the Nightbringer, and here's where I made another mistake. I had 0 CP left, and I meant to keep 1, because what you can do is we have a strat that's almost never used. It's called Thunderous Stride, and a Dread Knight can charge, and on a 2 and then any 1 unit that they end up in engagement range with, you roll a d6. On a 2 through 5, you do d3 mortal wounds, and on 6, you do 3 mortal wounds, and on a 1, you do none. So I needed at least 1 more mortal wound, and so I had actually been thinking I should save 1 CP for Thunderous Stride, and then I blew it earlier in the turn for something, and I don't really remember which. Probably a purifying ritual reroll or something. But anyway, this was a big mistake. So instead of being able to kill the Nightbringer this turn by doing 3/3 and then 3, he lives. He lives with 1 CP after I charge. I do the maximum damage. He lives with 1 wound, which sucked. So that's a big mistake that I made, because if I could kill the Nightbringer, that's a huge piece of tech and a very maneuverable, very hardy, and very hard-hitting melee unit that he wouldn't have had for all the other turns. His turn, he moves up onto the objective with the interceptors on it, with the Silent King and the Scarabs and the Lich Guard. They all charge in to one of the squads and just kill it. The Nightbringer moves up now to get in range of the Libby. I think it did 1 or 2 wounds to the Libby. He then charges the Libby and the Apothecary with the Nightbringer and kill both. He stays out of range of the Paladins, which is good. But then I swing into the command barge with the Paladins and I just murder it. Turn 4. Paladins, I chose to smite the Nightbringer just because it heals 1 from living metal, so it had 2 wounds left. I smite it, I get 2 damage off, and it just croaks, because the Satans don't get their dynastic mortal wound feel no pain. So any mortal wounds you can do to them stick, and it drops finally. It's 1 turn too late, but it finally drops. And I've lost my Grandmaster, which sucks, but it is what it is. I'm feeling really good about the game, actually. At this point, I have lots of board control. I'm keeping him on like 8 points for primary, or 4 points, 4 to 8, and I'm just like 12, 12, 12, 12. I have a 3-man interceptor squad left on that objective back there. The Tech Marine gates up one of the DKs just a little bit. That way I can get teleport assault. It fires into the Technomancer that's on the 2nd floor near where my Paladins are and kills it. That gives me 4 points for teleport assault there. My Paladins are kind of bored at this point. They're alone. They're supporting 3 characters are all dead, and they're just kind of like making drinks or something. But they're scoring me points, so they're just gonna chill. Purifying Ritual again fails to go off more than twice. At this point, my opponent, he has 5 Lich Guard, 2 Immortals, and the Silent King left, and he knows, he's like, this is over. He has killed, I think, a total of 7 Interceptors and a Dread Knight at this, and then my 3 characters. So I still have a ton of troops and assets on the board, and he doesn't. He does a little bit of shooting into a DK, he wounds it, he kills 2 out of the 3 remaining Interceptors, and then he kills the last one finally with a charge from the Scarabs. Also, Babber is just looking so cute on the kitty cam at the moment. It's just great. My wife bought her a heating pad for her bed, and she basically hasn't left for like 3 days. It's adorable. So turn 5, we talked this out because he more or less conceded, but he wanted to get points, and I was like, cool, man. It was a great game. He was a great opponent. We started a little late too, because I realized when I got there I had forgotten my my measuring tape. So I ran like 3 doors down to a hardware store and bought one, and then ran back. So we were a little late, but we go over. I roll all my casts for scoring and stuff. He had locked down that one objective in the No Man's Land with the Silent King and Lich Guard. There's nothing I could do. I mean, eventually I could, but I'll just let you have that. That's fine. I don't need to go over there. So that was it. That was turn 1. Here's the score breakdown. I maxed out my primary. I still managed to almost max out Purifying Ritual. I got off a 4 earlier, and then I got 2s, like all the way through. Raised Banners did really well for me here, because I put one up with the Paladins Wars. So at the end of the game, I had 4 out of 6. So I scored 90, and my opponent scored 58. This is my first time playing Nephilim Necrons. And I had heard all these stories about how their secondaries are so good, they don't have to engage with you at all to score tons of points. So and not knowing really how their secondaries worked, but I knew that they had to do at least one of them on objectives. I knew that I had to pressure his objectives hard and try to hold them, or at least contest them, because if I contest them, he can't do his secondaries. So I was throwing away units like up in that far corner. I was just tossing in distraction interceptors to like stop him from being able to score, basically, and do his little like living metal or ancient machinery and stuff. Because there's one, they do it once per objective, and they get it 3 or 4 points per objective that they do it on. I think that's ancient machinery. You guys will correct me if I'm wrong. Also, don't forget, please ask me any questions. Like, that's why I do these live, or else I would pre-record them and edit them and make me look like I know what I'm actually doing when I don't. So my lessons learned, there was a lot here because I never played Necrons. It's been probably a year since I've played Necrons. But like I was saying, I was keeping the objective pressure up. I knew I had to do that. Killing his wraiths, so killing fast stuff in this game is usually very strong. And killing those wraiths right off the bat, like the first unit that shot in the whole game, my Grandmaster killed that whole unit of them, and it was incredible. He was not playing OBSEC Crons, no. And the thing is, the Necron reincarnation, it didn't come up very often because I was wiping out whole units at a time. I would purposefully not shoot them if they like if it was, you know, if I was just gonna kill one model, I was basically just not firing at them because I knew that they'd pop back up. The destroyers, anything with 4 or 3 or more wounds are probably pretty fair to actually not get a res out of. But if you kill, say, 5 of those 6 scarabs, he's gonna roll 30 dice, and you bet your ass he's gonna bring back at least 1 base. So I was just not doing that. And then I also know that if you're a good Crons player, you can reincarnate in front of your unit as long as you stay in coherency. And if I do that too much, he can actually start grabbing objectives off of me. So I just didn't shoot unless I knew I could wipe out the unit. And yes, I do. So I'll be honest with you, I fought 3 non-meta armies with my non-meta army. I know part of my ability to win this tournament came down to the fact that I fought, you know, I didn't fight like Leviathan Nids. I didn't fight any sisters. Like, I had no plan for going into sisters at all. So if I'd run into them, I don't know, I probably just would have lost and like completely folded. So yes, I know part of it is that, you know, we were all kind of playing off meta fun armies and not playing like really meta chasing armies. And the other biggest thing is that just like, I should have been smarter about not spending that CP that I was gonna use for Thunderous Stride, because if I'd killed the Nightbringer in that turn, I wouldn't have lost my Grandmaster, I wouldn't have lost my Librarian, and I wouldn't have lost my Apothecary. If he had taken Assassinate, that turn alone for him, or yeah, that turn alone for him would have been 9 points. So that was my big mistake, is I used it for a reroll or something stupid earlier when I should have actually saved it. I also made a mistake where I had interceptors in a ruin. They got charged. I told my opponent I set to defend, and then I didn't roll on 2s. I rolled on 3s, so whoops. I could have probably picked up more immortals, but, you know, what are you going to do? All right, round 2 was into Chaos Knights. This was a match I knew nothing about. I don't know anybody that plays these. I know nothing about the rules. They were fucking gorgeous though. Here, I want to like look at these things. Every single one of them was like painted to these crazy standards. It's a gorgeous army. Anyway, so this was conversion. So this is the mission with the big circle in the middle, but your deployment zones are actually only like 9 inches apart. So you can get right up in the enemy's face really, really fast. I took behind enemy lines, which I took that one because I didn't have another choice that I really liked, but I knew he was playing knights, and I knew I could probably deep strike in there and just start to rack up points. And even if I could get 8, I was figuring that was an okay choice. I took Purifying Ritual, and then of course you take Bring It Down because you're fighting knights. Why wouldn't you? I think the big ones are worth 4 points apiece, and the small ones are worth 2 each. So, or 3 each, or something. Anyway, it's easy to max out that when you're going into knights. He took Assassination, and then 2 of the ones from his codex, Ruthless Tyranny and Storm of Darkness, which I've already forgotten how they work. I know one of them has to be done in the middle of the board, like Oath a Moment, and the other one has to be done on one or on each objective once, and it ends in like the morale phase or something. It's really bizarre. I put 1 Strike Squad and a Dread Knight into Deep Strike. He put nothing into Deep Strike, of course. This army was crazy. So normally the big knights are 24 wounds. This house adds 4 to that, so 28 wounds. All the little knights had 2 more wounds, so I think they were at 14 instead of 12, or maybe it's 15 instead of 13. I don't remember. It was a lot. A lot of wounds. He had one big knight. He had one warlord with this ridiculous like laser destructor cannon thing. He had and then he had, what's that, 7 war dogs of various types, including one that was a psyker, which was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty unique. So again, this is the deployment zones. I guess we're actually 18 inches apart, and it was really, really easy, especially with these really fast knights, to get up in my grill immediately. On this game, I definitely wanted to go first, but it's a hold 1, hold 2, hold more. You only get your command points if your warlord is on the table. You get 4 points if you hold your opponent's home objective. You get 2 points if you hold 1 or more in no man's land, and you lose 1 point if you don't hold your own. So if you hold the opponent's, that's a 5-point swing, which is pretty nar. Again, here's his absolutely gorgeous army. He won best painted, of course. That, like, the amount of detail on these was just insane. Here's the deployment. As you can see, I hid everything that I possibly could back in my big ruin here. He is deployed right up on the line. The line is like right here, so he is as far forward as he can possibly be. And again, I walked into this like I was talking to Josh, my opponent, and I'm like, hey man, I've never fought knights since their codex. And he's like, it's cool, man, I've never fought Grey Knights. And he's asking me, you know, like, how much high strength shooting do you have? And I had to be like, well, funny story, almost none. And he was very happy about that, but he was sad because I told him how many mortal wounds I could potentially do. And then he's like, okay, well, that's my real threat, isn't even his shooting, because Stormbolters are going to be wounding on 6s, because they're T8, the 2 big knights are. And the side cannon, I was like, I can get 1 side cannon up to strength 9 once a turn for 1 CP. And he's like, oh, okay. So he didn't really care about it, any of my shooting. That's why he was so aggressive. The yellow lines on the table mark common deployment zone layouts. I don't think we used any of those this tournament, but the organizer leaves those on the boards and then rolls them up so that they're there every time. I lost turn 1, which I did not want, I did not want that to happen. I really wanted turn 1. I know this is a huge wall of text, and I know you probably don't really care. What happened, generally speaking, is he managed to move up his stalkers, the 3 knights with the Melta, the 3 small knights. He moved them off. They got a shot onto my rhino. Almost killed it, but I popped smoke. And I managed to live with 2 wounds. Forget what it's called. It's not pop smoke. It's some other thing, but yeah. It's some sparkly Grey Knight thing. He was really good, actually, about screening out Deep Strike with his carnivores that ran up north, and his executioners, which are the long-range small knights with the autocannons. So he was doing pretty well, actually, there. I started in Tide of Shadows, which doesn't matter for the Rhino, which sucks, but that's the way it goes. That's why I actually pop smoke. I switched into conversion straight away, or convergence straight away, because I knew I needed to do as much mortal wound damage as I possibly could. I shunted my Grandmaster up the board in order to at least contest an objective. I was also trying to bait out the sigil, and I moved up. I moved all of my interceptors as far as I could, and I got them to both where it was like a 5-inch charge onto the big Psyker Knight. For some reason, my stutter is off the hook this morning. So I also just pushed my servitors up. They had nothing to do. I wasn't doing banners, so I'm like, go forth, guys, and just die in the name of the Holy Emperor. And I was trying to move block a bit. I forgot the big knights can just walk right over you anyway. But whatever. If I can get models onto an objective, that's not a bad thing. From my Grandmaster, I go to cast Empiric Amplification, and he denies it. I should have spent my last CP for 3d6 cast on this. I did not, and he easily stopped it, which sucked. Because once I told him it was +1 damage to all my melee and my psi weapons, he's like, oh no, oh, I don't want that. No. So I think he even had to re-roll, but he stopped it anyway, which comes into play later. Let's see. Everything in my army that possibly could fired into the big Abominate Knight. I did 16 wounds to it or something. It was still up with 14 though, because it has 28 total. So I brought it down to 14. I charge, I get stuck in. He uses a -1 damage strat, which can only be used in the fight phase, and my interceptors basically just bounce. They do almost nothing. I mean, not almost nothing, but not enough. Because of that strat, which was super, like, a great idea, it lives with 2 wounds. This is not good because it is very good in combat, even on its bottom bracket. And it's his big Psyker Knight, and I needed it dead. Somehow he claps back and only kills 2 interceptors, but he had something like, I don't know, 14 attacks or something with this big, strong tentacle thingy. I don't know. Somehow I lived. It was Narnar. Here's what it looked like at the end of turn 1. So his big knight, his main warlord is here holding the middle and doing whatever the Oath of Moment action is. Here's the Abominate with 2 wounds left. Here's the Stalkers coming up the board. We got the Carnivores here and the Executioners here. Then turn 2. He moves a Carnivore up to come towards my home objective. He moves his Executioners around, trying to take up the space that the Carnivore had to stop some deep strike, but he left a pocket. He really didn't have a choice. He had to. He just doesn't have very many models. So he casts some powers, but one of them makes it through. It's the Feel No Pain, which goes onto his big Warlord Knight. Everything shoots. So all the Stalkers have a multi-melta. So that was 6 multi-melta shots in melta range. The Desecrator had like a strength 14 -5 D3 +3. He had rerolls. He tries to fire at my Grandmaster. I'm like, yes, and I jump away into that hole that he left. The Desecrator kills the Rhino, and because it's a model with 10 or more wounds, it powers up the big knight. I don't even remember what that does, but I didn't like it. It wasn't a good thing. But he whiffs. Like, his shooting phase was so bad, and I feel really bad for him because he fires off with all these weapons, all this melta, this like crater thingy, and other than killing the rhino, I don't think he did anything. Like with rerolls, he was just, it was ones to hit or ones to wound. The couple of hits that went into my non-Grandmaster Dread Knight, I saved with the Invul. It was a whole bunch of die rolling and nothing happened. I felt so bad, but for me, it was really lucky. Because if I'd lost that Dread Knight and everything, it would have been a way different game. So now that I have my Grandmaster back there, I'm able to get behind enemy lines on my turn. And then his shooting from the Abominant, that's the little Psyker Knight, into my Interceptors actually kills 3 of them and wipes out a squad. He was hitting on 6s, but now his dice wanted to play. The 5-man that are still left clap back and actually kill it. It does not explode, which also made me sad, but whatever. So now I have my Grandmaster Dread Knight in the back, in his deployment zone, exactly where I want him. I move up onto the only knight holding his backfield. I'm ready to go to town on it. I drop the strike squad into the area where the Grandmaster had jumped to. And then basically I move my whole Paladin blob out to try to kill this last big knight, because I know it's Warlord, now it's powered up, it has to fucking die. I drop down all of my Dread Knights, and then the Psychic phase starts, Armored Resilience, because now I'm throwing my Paladins up there, and I'm like, this is gonna, I need them to be as tanky as possible. Well, I perils, of course. I do 3 mortal wounds, of course, and then I failed all of my feel no pains, which immediately popped a Paladin. And it was a perils on a 2, so it didn't go off either. So that sucked. But my mortal wound Libby, I dumped a bunch of CP into him, and he went bananas. He did 11 or 12 wounds, but with that feel no pain, he's starting to save like over half, which continues throughout the entire life of this fucking knight. His 5-up just is actually a 4-up, basically. I wind up with more smites. They're all going into the Desecrator. I need it dead. And then my Grandmaster, he shot at Carnivore that was on the other objective to the north and kills it. So he shot from here up to here and killed one of the carnivores up there. But this is great. So I charge into that Executioner. All the math says he should die. I'm hitting on 2s. I'm feeling really confident. I can do D6 damage. Well, I bounce. I only hit 3 times. I wound only twice, and I rolled like 1 damage each. So that sucked. D6 damage feels really bad. So theoretically, if 4 wounds had gotten through and I rolled average damage, he was dead, but that didn't happen. So now my Grandmaster's locked in combat with the Executioner, which thankfully only has guns and has terrible melee. But I really needed this thing dead, and once again, it didn't die. So one of my takeaways is, if you really need something to die for a pivotal switch in the game, because if I killed him, he loses that objective, and he would have gone from 12 points to 8. on his turn. But that didn't happen. I needed to use more CP and make my Grandmaster more reliable. Even though he is very reliable, I needed to make him more so. Oh well. All right. Yeah, so I got to have my mortal wound Libby finally go off. That felt good. He saved most of those mortal wounds. That did not feel good, but you know, it's a die game. What are you gonna do? He moves up his 2 stalkers into my quarter. So now this whole game he did a very good job of board control and keeping me basically just stuck in my corner. Other than my deep strikes, I couldn't move. Because I had to protect what I currently had, and I had to kick him off of the objectives that he was holding. But I couldn't because he was putting on so much pressure, and just GK are terrible into toughness 7 and toughness 8. My halberds are wounding on 5s, my stormbolters are wounding on 6s. My side cannon is wounding on 4s. One of them can wound on 3s once, you know, per shooting phase. It just feels really bad. Like you just feel like you're hitting a wall. We have no anti-tank. Anyway, he shoots tons into my army and does what he was hoping to have done last turn, which he just picks up 2 of my Dread Knights right out the gate. I lose a Strike Marine back on his home objective. A Stalker charges into some Strike Marines I had dropped down to screen out my home objective, which was another mistake because really I just ended up giving him more free movement through pile-ins and consolidates. Knights fuck in melee, so 5 Strike Marines weren't gonna live. I don't know why I actively did that. So it's his turn, so I actually get to swing first on the non-charges. So I swing into his Executioner on his objective. I hit 6 out of 6 times, and then I rolled 5 ones to wound. Which was awful, because again, going back to what I was saying earlier, if you really need something dead, you should spend the resources to make sure it's dead. If I had spent 1 CP again to reroll ones to hit and ones to wound, now I would have definitely killed this thing. But I didn't, so I didn't kill it, and then it actually claps back and crushes my Grandmaster. He had taken some other wounds in like the last turn or something and then jumped, so he was down a bit, but this non-melee knight actually like swung into him and killed him, which sucked. Paladins, I spent 1 CP to have them cast 2 powers, because in my brain fog I forgot that Purifying Ritual isn't a power, it's a psychic action. So I actually cheated here by accident. It didn't end up mattering because psychic or Purifying Ritual didn't go off anyway, but I did cheat here, and whoopsie, that's a mistake. You can't cast a power in the same time that you do an action, or a psychic action. So whoopsie, but it had no bearing on the game at all. Strike Squad advances up. I'm trying to get out of line of sight. So these are the Strike Squads in his home field. Those Executioners have like 6 or 8 shots each. They're and they do 3 damage, and they're like marine killing like hoses. So I needed this Strike Squad out of line of sight of the Executioner in the middle of the board as fast as possible. So they move up, they charge, and they kill the Executioner. Which is great. Now I hold his home objective, which is where this game starts to turn, Because until turn 3, I actually was thinking, like, when I didn't kill his big knight, and then when I didn't kill his big knight, and then when I didn't kill his little knight, I thought the game was over. Like, I thought he won, and that was it. But this is where the game starts to swing. I fire everything I have, and I get 1 stalker down to 4 wounds left and 1 down to 8. I chip a couple wounds off the Desecrator with Storm Bolters, which is hilarious because I never thought that that would actually matter. I charge with the Paladins, the Apothecary, and the Librarian. They all get stuck in. He again pops the -1 damage strat, but it's pretty low, and I'm feeling okay. And I bounce. He saves so many of the feel no pains. I fail to wound a whole bunch, and he lives with 5 wounds. This is where Paladins start to show their metal now, though, is he swings back. The knight that was the warlord is the Desecrator. The Abominant is now dead, finally. But the Desecrator is his warlord. That's the one that's like powered up, and that's the one that I'm trying to kill right now. So it swings back and does nothing to my Paladins. Nothing. He's like hitting on 3s, he's wounding on 2s, but I have a 3-up save because I have AOC and Armored Resilience. So I just saved everything, and he looked at me like I just kicked his dog. Because it was like strength 16 minus 3 AP. Whoops, I think I just accidentally muted myself. Anyway, it's this huge, like, strength 16 minus 3 AP, 8 damage claw, and I just saved everything. So I was feeling very good because my Paladins, all 4 of them are still up. I thought they were going to go bye-bye. So here's the board state at the end of turn 3. We have the Desecrator right in the middle here. We got the 4 Pallies, the Librarian, and the Apothecary. One of the carnivores up here is dead. These strikes had killed this Executioner. These stalkers, though, are being a damned menace. I can't hurt them. They're T7. They have a ton of wounds. They're very, very fast, and they all have multi-meltas and like lots of tiny guns too. So I'm down to 1 Dread Knight now. 2 strike squads, the Paladins, the Libby, the Apothecary, and then back under this is 1 Tech Marine. That's it. That's my whole army. Everything's on the board. That's all I've got left. He still has 5 Knights. But now I have, or for 1 turn, I did have 2 units in his backfield. So I got 4 for bring them down. My strike squad is now holding his home, though, so he I gain 4, or I will on my turn, but he loses a point from him actually losing that spot, and now he's only scoring 8, not 12, and I'm scoring 8 as well on my turn. But so turn 4 is a total bloodbath. Stalkers move up, kill my Tech Marine, charge, and take my home. Objective. The Stalkers and the Executioners fire into my strike squad that's in the middle of the field, and they die. Carnivore, or yeah, they killed the last infantry I had out in the open that weren't my Paladins. The Carnivore fails his charge, which is huge, because then it would have killed my strike squad, and it would have had another model able to move into my side of the board. He even tried to reroll, and it failed, a 5-inch charge. So I was kind of like, hooray, because that was pretty big. The Desecrators the Desecrator fires into my Paladins and does nothing, because it's hitting on 6s. And it's only got 3 shots from the big gun, so I'm safe. The Dread Knight and the Strike Squad up top, they both cast Hammer Hand, and they move back towards my home field. They charge that Stalker, and they kill it. I like how I just stopped writing this slide, I guess, but that's all that happened. But at the end of turn 4, you can see, yeah, and I mortal wounded the Desecrator to death finally, so it dies. Now you can see on the board state, we have 1 Dread Knight left. There's a Strike Squad kind of like hidden in here. And now he only has 3 Knights left. I am now tucked back in here with my OBSEC holding his home field, so I'm feeling pretty good now. Now that like points are starting to get a lot closer, but at first he had been running away with the score. So our game had been going a little long because he was like looking stuff up in his book and explaining his rules, and I was explaining mine, and so we took a little longer. But turn 5, like we knew now it was within like 6 or 7 points, and so we knew we needed to actually talk out turn 5. And so we only did the things that you needed to really do. So he rolled some shots. They didn't do. I think they took out my Dread Knight, but it ended up not mattering because that Strike Squad was there. Anyway, now my Paladins are on the middle objective, and my Strike Squad is on his. So I'm holding 3. He's holding 2. I cast my Purifying Rituals. Of course, only 2 out of the 3 actually go off. And then the big play, though, is that he moved his Executioner onto his home field to try to kill those Strike Marines, because I went second, so I score at the end of turn 5. And so he knew he had to get all of my resources off of there. And so I actually used true silver armor to make him wound on 4s, and that saved them. Full stop. He kills 1, but not the other. That's not enough to make me run away. And I end up actually holding it, and that is what swung the game, because I had mine back. I got 12. He lost 1. I got an extra 6 for the missions secondary. And that is how I managed to eke by with a 7-point win with a 90 over his 83. It was like the TO was standing there watching us because this was like so tight. And he's like, we got to go to the next round. And we're like, no, hold on. We need like 5 minutes. We really need to figure out who wins this here. So it was me, barely. But in turns 1 and 2, I didn't think I was going to win this game. Like, I did not have... Thankfully, I brought secondaries that ended up being very good for my army. And then I eventually was able to squeeze through and kill a lot of stuff with mortal wounds. If Grey Knights had no mortal wounds, there's no way we could win this matchup. It's just, we don't have enough high strength shooting. All right. So lessons learned. Sometimes the dice have a story to tell, and there's nothing you can do. My 3d6 cast Empiric failed. He denied it. My 5 ones to wound, that sucked. That would have been another probably, 6-point swing for the game. Well, I think I maxed out primary anyway, but yeah, it was like sometimes the dice are just gonna play their own game. His shooting phase into me on turn 2 was so bad. I felt awful. He was just rolling 1s. Like, it was terrible. But the biggest lesson really is to like not stop, not give up, because if I had just, I think even at one point on turn 2, I said, like half jokingly, I said, like, I think that's game. Because I didn't kill his big big knight. And I'm like, I'm just gonna get clapped back by your crazy like psychic powers, and you know, this thing's 10 obsec models, and you know, just scary, right? So, but I didn't give up. We played it out, and I ended up actually eking out a small win. So, oh, are they known for gassing out? That this was my second game against knights ever. I'd played Imperial Knights once before, but that was before they got their codex. So that's it. Those are my 2 knight games. But I guess that makes sense, because once they're out of like CP and their big knights are dead, they kind of like gas out, as you said. So yeah, and for once, true silver armor was actually useful, because for 2 CP, it's so rare to ever use it. All right, this gets into round 3. I didn't take a lot of photos for this round. Good news is it was short. We only really went to 3 turns because it was an absolute bloodbath. Ben is a really great guy. He's been at every RTT I have been to. We have never matched up until now. And he's a funny dude. We're both pretty tired at this point. We're just cracking jokes, having a great time. I took Teleport Assault, Purifying Ritual, and Raise the Banners. He took Engage on all fronts, Retrieve Nephilim data, and he took Bring It Down, because I was, with the 4 Dread Knights and the Rhino, I think I gave up 13 or something. So he said, I'll take that one. Okay. He was Hail of Doom. And I just want to explain for folks that don't know, Hail of Doom is anytime a shuriken cannon or a shuriken weapon gets a 6 to hit, it also counts as a 6 to wound. And when a shuriken weapon wounds on a 6, it goes from AP -1 to AP -3. And I think the cannons go to AP -4. Anyway, they gain a bunch of extra AP. The only saving grace is it's all 1 or 2 damage, but he has a ton of shots. He has like 130 shuriken shots or something a turn. It's a lot. I'd never played Hail of Doom. I'd heard about it. I know the general rule set. And then with his fate dice that he rolls at the start of each round, or the start of each turn, he can actually get 6s to hit in shooting. So he can really play with the dice and get rerolls and just fish for those 6s to wound, or those 6s to hit. And then you just end up being drowned in like -1 damage, but AP 3, or 1 damage, but -3 AP shots, which sucks. It's a lot. So, he put the Swooping Hawks into Deep Strike. I stuck 2 strike squads. I kept everything else on the board because I knew whether I went first or second, I was going to have as many pieces on the board as I could to try to kill as much of his stuff as possible. Into this matchup, Grey Knights have kind of the opposite problem that I had into Knights, where into this army, I am wounding everything on the board except his big tank on like 2s and 3s. All his infantry is on 2s and 3s. His bikes are on 2s and 3s. His Vipers, I guess, his Warwalkers, and his big tank aren't. But most of his army, I'm wounding super easily. All right. I won Attacker Defender. I chose to defend, so I dropped Terrain first. And then I also won the turn 1 roll-off. Now, the only reason I wanted that is because if we go to the deployment, you'll see he deployed all this stuff on the far back edge, right? I'm down here. Well, if I go, and he asked he asked if I like what the range of my guns were, and I said, well, if I'm in the tide of convergence, they are are 30 inches. He said, okay, great, and he just kind of put everything on the back here. Well, I also moved 9, so I was able to get up here, and then from wherever I could move to his back line was like 29 inches. So I got to shoot all my Dread Knights turn 1, which was pretty big. I should talk about the actual mission. So we were playing Tide of Conviction. It's a hold 2, hold 3, hold more, which I hate. I think everyone hates these, but you know, you get what you get. You only get CP if you hold your home objective, and then you get 2 points if you hold at least one of the objectives in enemy territory. So you have to, so for me, if I'm player A on this map, I would have to hold one of the 2 in player B's side of the board. And then you get 4 points if you control the enemy home. So yes, here's the deployment. Again, you know, he's got everything, kind of a bunch of squishy units in range of my stuff, even after he asked what my like range was and everything. Oh shoot, I missed my there it is. I almost lost my window. Another thing that's really cool, and you know, about this interceptor in the Rhino tech choice, is from this edge of my Rhino. Ah, shit. I was muted. I don't know. How long have I been muted? Sorry, guys. I've got all these, like, fancy buttons, and I pressed the wrong one. I'll just start over on this slide. So when I realized I was gonna go first, I used foretelling. I put all of my Dread Knights right on the line. He spent 2 CP to redeploy some of his stuff as well. I don't remember what or where. I move up. I put up 3 banners immediately. Like, my whole army basically goes up, except the Rhino and those servitors who were kind of strung out to stop deep strikes. So my Paladins go up, they raise a banner. My Librarian casts Purifying Ritual. It was my Librarian or my Apothecary, I don't remember. My strikes, 2 of them, squads, they move up, they put up a banner, they do Purifying Ritual. I catapult up one of my interceptor squads out of the Rhino. I am now on one of his board side objectives in no man's land. And then my Dread Knights shoot, and I pick up 1.5 units of Wind Riders. My thoughts at this time are, I can't see his Dire Avengers. They're hidden because they ought to be. And I need to kill as many of his Shuriken and his fast stuff as possible. I know he's doing Rand, and I know he's doing Engage. So I need to kill his fast stuff. All these bikes, they move like 22 inches or something, because his list can advance and still do actions. His list can advance and still do all kinds of like crazy stuff. So I know I need to kill his fast stuff, so that's what I try. On his turn, he rockets forward. All this stuff like comes out to play. And his alpha strike is immense. Our psychic phase, he was very good about like keeping his Farseer and his warlocks really far back, and he was measuring out, so I didn't have a lot of denies. I stopped Doom from going off, but not guidance, which I don't think he cared, because like he wants those rerolls to hit anyway. But he cast, I don't know, 6 or 7 spells, and only 2 of them ended up actually going off. And then in his shooting phase, without much effort at all, he just picks up 2 Dread Knights. The Dire Avengers squads, when they move out, they have 3. It's a 10-man, 3 shots each, so that's 33 shots. Or it's 30. It was 33 shots because I don't know. I think the sergeant got an extra shot or something. Anyway, it's a lot. It's like 33, and then there's all the other guns on all the other stuff, and they just pick up 2 Dread Knights. He moves everything, so he's got full points for engage, and a group of bikes comes down and does is it bikes that came down and did? Yeah, and did Rand. I think it was bikes. So turn 2, I know now he's moved his really shooty units out to where I can actually kill them. So I focus down and kill his Dire Avengers. I pick up 1 whole squad between shooting and melee. Well, I think in shooting, I think I just pick up 1 whole squad. I get another one down to half. They then run away, which was insane. They like failed morale, and they all left. I think one of them was left and ends up spending the rest of the game in the tank. So there goes half of his hail of doom shots. So I was feeling pretty good about that. My interceptors are kind of swinging around now. So they're coming up like counterclockwise, and they are just pushing everything off of his side. I dropped some strikes back there to like to back them up. So now I hold 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 2. And it's a hold 2, hold 3, hold more. And he's only holding his home 1. So he scores 0 for primary. He moves up, he grabs a second objective. He moves his Seer Council back into the far corner. He's trying to keep them out of deny range, along with his Farseer. So I'm kind of starting to pinch him into his back corner. As he's moving away. What else? Yeah, his shooting is pretty limited at the moment. I think he moves up with some. Yeah, he moves up with some bikes and kills some servitors, but I don't really care. They're not useful in this matchup. He brings out his Banshees, and this was another play. He brings out his Banshees. He moves them really close to one of my DK that's really wounded. He tries to charge with both of them. The small unit of 4 get in, but the big of 5 doesn't. He fails his charge with a reroll. So he goes in and he does nothing. I don't think it's nothing. I think he does a couple wounds, but the DK claps back and just like picks him up. So that's the end of turn 2, and already he's down a bunch of his army. He's down a whole bunch. He's down 3 Vipers. He's down 20 Dire Avengers. He's down a whole unit, or I think 2 unit of Wind Riders at this point. So like I'm just it's a slaughter. Like Stormbolters into T3 bodies are insanely good. Just absolutely bonkers good. Any infantry that poked out at all, I just picked up. Like might as well not have even like stuck them on the table because they died so fast. So I had the opposite problem from when I played Knights, where I was wounding everything on 5s and 6s, and now I'm wounding everything on like 2s and 3s. The Paladins, they move up, they charge, they're now holding the other objective in his no man's land, so now he's back onto 1. The mortal wounds, Libby goes ape shit again, does like 11 or 12 mortal wounds, almost kills the wave serpent by itself. The DK lights up the banshees in the open and they die because it's Aeldari infantry in the open. The strikes and the tech marines killed the swooping hawks that had come down the previous turn and done retrieve Knockman data. And just yeah, I like at this point, I mean, at the end of turn 2, I already felt really, really good about this game. And then at the end of my turn 3, I was like, okay, this is my game to lose now. So he goes, and again, he gets 0 for primary because he's only holding his home field. That's it. His army moves all around. He's just trying to pick up as many points as he possibly can. He's a great player. We're both a little tired now. 3 games is a lot. This is 9 hours of Warhammer. And we had spent like the first 30 minutes of the match just kind of like bullshitting. So we already knew that we had to make up time anyway. His return fire is really minimal. I think he took out like a unit of strikes and then that, I don't know, one of them ran, I think. I don't know. It was the point of the game where we both know like we're just playing this out now to see how many points, right? Turn 4, this is where I'm like all over the place now. I have complete board control. He's lost so many units that I am now just shooting into his HQs. I am throwing up banners all over the board. I'm doing Purifying Ritual. My Grandmaster wasn't shot at, charged, or interacted with at all this whole game, so he is just running around being a total fucking menace. He can do anything he wants. Because no one wants to shoot him, because I'll just deep strike somewhere more horrible than where he is now. So and he has no good charging units left, so he's not going to try to kill him in melee. He denies a whole bunch of my Purifying Rituals. I score another 2 points. I think in this whole tournament, every time I scored Purifying Ritual, I scored 2 points, except once when I got 4. Even if I was on 4 objectives, I never got off that sweet 5 even once. So yeah, at this point, on his turn, he has like a couple of HQs and like 1 wounded Warwalker left, maybe 1 last Viper or something. That's effectively it. So we talk out turn 5, and according to my notes, and I want to talk to Ben and see if it's true, but according to my notes from the Tabletop Battles app, he didn't score any points 4 or 5. No secondaries, no primary, nothing. And he didn't score any primary at all this whole game, except he got a couple points for the mission secondary, which counts towards your primary. So this was like a complete whirlwind of destruction. We were just scooping models. So yeah, we talk it out. I roll all the casts. I have to roll. I am doing all kinds of chintzy shit with teleport assault in this game, where like I'm casting gate, and then I nudge the Dread Knight up like, you know, a quarter inch or something, because it moved, it teleported, so that counts for the secondary. But it worked, and then we do all the math, and the game was 89 to 30. I maxed out almost everything, maxed out primary. In fact, at the top of turn 5, he reminded me, he's like, hey man, you maxed out primary, so like, I just moved my whole army, because I can move everything off of it. I don't have to hold anything now. My banners are gonna score anyway. The only thing I have to hold stuff for is for Purifying Ritual. So every unit that could move off of the objective did. Because why not, right? And that was it. Round 3, lessons learned. Paladins are really, really good. I overextended them in this match. I didn't mention it because it didn't have any bearing on the game, but I left the Apothecary and the Librarian behind to hold and objective, but to get my mind bullets off, I had to have moved the Librarian up out of cover, and so he just shot it and killed it. So I lost a Librarian, kind of dumb, because I moved the Paladins away from it. The Paladins were absolute, like, bricks this game. Hitting them with AP3 if they're in cover with AOC means I get a 2-up save. So, don't care. They didn't care at all. Wait, hold on. 2, I ignore the first one. I'm in cover, and then, yeah, armored, resilient. So I effectively have a -1 in cover. So 3 AP brings me to my 2-up save. Paladins are really, really good, but it's also really easy to overextend them because you know how good they are. So don't do that. And then I should have really figured out my deep strikes better. I just kind of took 2 strikes and put them in deep strike for no real reason. And yes, the Paladins were absolutely bricks the whole day. I only lost 2 ever. I lost 1 in the Necron game, and I lost 1 in the Chaos Knight game, but only because they blew themselves up with the perils. Otherwise, I don't think I would have lost 1 in the Chaos Knight game either. Paladins are so good. I'm just sad. I mean, they're really expensive, but man, they are good. 45 points each is... Ugh, yowza. I'd love to find points and put hammers on all of them, because that would have been way better into the Knights with -1 damage and no empiric amplification. Josh was very good about shutting that power down every single turn. He's like, I don't want you to cast that. And then the one thing that could actually cast it ended up being in his backfield. So he, you know, like whatever. But 3 damage instead, or 2 damage instead of 1 after the -1 would have been way better than 1 damage after -1, right? Yeah, so I needed to go in with a better plan on my turn 1. I never played Hail of Doom before. I had the general idea. I didn't realize those 2 10-mans of Dire Avengers are like half of his Hail of Doom firepower. So knowing that, I would have thrown away 2 Dread Knights to just get angles and try to kill as many of them as possible, because their leadership's only 7. So if you can kill 4, which you're going to do if you can get an angle on them, because they're T3 anyway with a Dread Knight, like you're wounding them on 3s with the silencer and 2s with the side cannon anyway. And you're like, if you can kill 3 or 4, you can probably lose another couple to morale, and then you're at that weird point where the Aeldari player doesn't want to put buffs on a unit of like 3 Dire Avengers because they're only going to fire, 11 shots or whatever, which isn't enough. So if you can whittle down both squads to where they're no longer super effective if buffed, like that's better than actually killing 1 whole squad and leaving 1 squad at full strength, if that makes sense. Because then they can just buff the other big squad, and then you eat 33 buffed shots to the face, right? So I should have done that instead. But hey, I won, and that was, you know, Ben is not he's not a bad player. He's quite good. Um, and you know, 90 to 30 is just because I won first turn. Like I think that was the biggest roll of the game. And he left some stuff out in the open that I could easily grab on turn one. So that's it. I think turn one was like the biggest thing of that. Yes, he is no pushover. Um, and yeah, 45-point Paladins do make the Hearthguard look bad. Difference is the Hearthguard are a shooting unit, and the Paladins are definitely a melee unit. Because they get 4 attacks each, 5 for the Paragon, hitting on 2s in melee. That's where they want to be. So, yeah. So that was my win at an RTT. Would I change the list any? I don't really know where to find very many points. Prestige's Paralysis came in handy in that last game. When I charged a big unit of Dire Avengers, I just turned off Overwatch, which was awesome. So I don't know if I'd get rid of that, because just every now and then there's a big threat on the board with good shooting or a lot of shooting, and you have to just get in there. So I don't know if I'd get rid of Prestige Paralysis. And that's really the only tech choice in the list that I want to play with at all. Halbers are very, very good. Into Necrons, who are almost all T5, I was wounding on 3s. They weren't good into the Knights, but, you know, none of our force weapons are good into Knights, except the hammers, which are very expensive. And they were also very good into Aeldari, because they're almost all T3, so I'm wounding on 2s. So I definitely think that I could maybe change the modeling. I could put some halberds on my strikes. But that's really the only thing I'd change in the list. This list does exactly what Jose planned for it to do. And if you can think on your feet, it does exactly that. I would love to run this into more meta lists now. I have a better understanding of how the list actually plays. I would love to see how it does into, you know, big bug nids, because I think you'd have a lot of the same problems you have into Knights. But I do have some ideas on another Grey Knight list that's a soup list, thanks to Kyle, one of my recent Grey Knights. So I might be bringing some tanks with my Grey Knights here soon, which will solve that problem of how we have no access to strength 8 or reliable high AP, high strength shooting. Side cannons are very reliable. They're strength 8, but they're only AP 2, and in an AOC world, that doesn't matter. And we can't turn off cover. So if you fire a side cannon at Marines in cover, they get their 3-up armor save. So yeah, that's it, guys. I don't really have any more to say about the tournament itself. I'd love to answer your questions if you have any. We've had over 10 viewers this whole cast, which is awesome. Which I find surprising, because those are basically just PowerPoint presentations, and we all know how exciting those are. I think I should pare it down to the big things and not do complete play-by-plays. Most reliable secondary. It's definitely Purifying Ritual. I mean, it was unreliable just because of my rolls, but it was the most reliably scoring, where Teleport Assault required me to do a lot of thinking about exactly who was going to cast what at which unit, and then how was I going to fire all of my units so that the one that got gated or came in from Deep Strike could actually get the kill. That's a bit obnoxious. I think Bring It Down was technically the most reliable, because I scored max on it because I was playing Knights. Because I think if you kill a big knight, they're 5 points, and if you kill a small one, they're like 2 or 3. So it's really easy to get to max that out. It's like playing Drakari as Grey Knights. You know they're gonna take Ub or the Witch, and they're gonna max it out. So, yeah, I wanted to put the kitty cam on Sylvie because she actually moves around, but she isn't in the room and hasn't been since I started recording. So sorry. Instead, you get this the fat old cat. What matchup was I dreading the most? Out of the people that were there, I was dreading Knights the most, I think. Just because I knew nothing about them at all. Nothing. And that showed with the way I played. Like, oh, you have a strat for that? Oh, you can, you know, move over models. I knew like their OBSEC. I knew, you know, I knew that stuff. Unyielding Anvil was actually really helpful because if I remember right, the big knights count as 10 models, but they don't count as OBSEC models. So when my paladins got in on that Desecrator, they had OBSEC, and I held that point. And that was actually a big swing as well. What do you flip out for tanks? Okay, I think that goes along with Adam Skinner's question. See, I just don't want to. I want to make sure I answered everyone's question. Yes. So up above, someone mentioned the Rhino Interceptor Tech Start. I love that combo. That combo is so good. Like the fact that we can put our fast, hard-hitting melee infantry into a Rhino and get 3 extra inches of effectively fly movement is not to be like sniffed at all. In every single one of my games, that ended up mattering quite a bit because I was able to contest objectives on turn 1 and 3 right out the gate, or at least put on pressure in turn 1, and on turn 2, it let me get those 2 interceptor squads into the big psychic knight because they got me like the Rhino move got me within a reliable 5-inch range for my charge. Where if I hadn't had the Rhino, I would have been doing 8-inch charges, and that doesn't feel anywhere near as good. So I can't imagine now, honestly, playing a Grey Knight list without at least 1 Rhino. And remember, you can do this like shuffle thing. So if you have 1 Rhino and you have multiple squads, you can move them into the Rhino after 1 squad leaves, and you can just every turn you can have 5 to 10 like really fast guys just climbing out of the Rhino and just move, just like booking it. Would I continue to run Jose's list or run Derek's or JP's? Gosh, I love all of those tech choices. I really love that Derek runs more interceptors. I think they're really, really good. I know people are not favoring Dread Knights right now just because they don't get AOC and they don't have high AP shooting, which is why I'm actually going to, if I do run a Guard and Grey Knight list, I'll be dropping my DKs, except the Grandmaster, for tanks. And a Cadian 10-man squad, by the way, is 65 points, which is, or well, I guess it's not even Cadian, but a Guard squad is 65 points for 10 dudes. So bring 2 of those, have them camp on your backfield objectives. I'm going to lose Purifying Ritual anyway if I soup. So it won't matter if I don't leave my Grey Knights behind to cast. It lets my strikes actually get up into melee, and they're actually very good in melee. They're just kind of easy to kill. They're kind of, you know, defenseless, but if you can get them stuck in, they're very good. So I don't know. Like I think I just really want to run tanks. I want to go with a Kyle McCord style list, especially after they just got their new codex. The plasma tanks are really really good, and they're all strength 7, strength 8, shooting, high AP, high damage, lots of shots, which is what the Dread Knights. The Dread Knights bring lots of shots, but not at high AP or high strength. So, um, what did I enjoy the most about this RTT? I mean, I really liked winning. Everybody, we play this game, we love winning. Like it's a competitive game, but I really, really just I enjoy meeting new people, like looking at these awesome armies. Everyone was super nice. We all got there early, and we spent 20 or 30 minutes just chatting about hobby stuff with everybody. I knew almost everyone there except the first two folks that I played, which was great because I got to meet two people I didn't know. And I just really, I guess the part I love the most to answer your question is it's very social, and I'm a gregarious kind of guy. I'm very outgoing. And will I let the guardsmen live after the battle? It depends on if we win or not, really. So, um, I did have a match for squats. You can watch it. It's a 5 hour long bat rep on my channel because um Zach and I were just bullshitting the whole time. But um that was pre nerf too. No, I don't know. I need reps into some meta armies. I need reps into Votann. I need reps into Leviathan, Nids. I need reps into Sisters. Who else is doing really well right now? I guess Guard is actually, aren't they winning GTs now? So Guard. Um, yeah, but especially with the Guard tanks being out there, we have no, other than mortal wounds, we have no way of dealing with Guard tanks. And when you're gonna stare 6 Lehman Russes in the face, having smites doesn't seem that helpful. um, any other questions? I should mention that Ordo Fanaticus is hosting a whole bunch of tournaments. I think there's at least one tournament from them every month through the next year. In March is Rosehammer GT. I'll be there. It'll be 2 days. It'll be 6 games. So I need to practice, practice, practice for the Rosehammer. If you're in the area, there are still tickets available, and you should totally hit that up. Um, you say yes, I'm going to soup Grey Knights, but at least it's a thematic soup, right? Like the Inquisition commonly just grabs regiments of the Astra Militarum and is like, "Hey, we need you guys over here. By the way, you might be fighting horrific beings from the warp that you don't even know exist yet, because we've tried to make sure no one knows they exist." Speaking of which, I need reps into demons as well, because without Tide of Banishment, I think that's a way harder matchup. And they are doing very well right now, the old demons. And Babber looks so happy. She's like 14 or 15. She's an old lady. All she does is sleep and eat. You're playing Star Wars Legion in Colorado, March 11th through 12th. Very nice. I've never played Legion. It looks fun. But I mean, ask Levi, who's in chat. We went in on the Fire Slayer and the Deepkin box for AOS. I haven't even built my Fire Slayers yet. I've played one game of AOS ever. I barely have time for 40k at this point, so I gotta pick one and stick with it. I'll be doing more Chaos Gate here soon. Might even do it tonight. I don't know. It depends on what my plans might be. I might just play that. And then I'll be doing more recaps every time I go to a tournament. And I still have my Honored Knight AOC Brotherhood redesign video. I've almost got the guide completely written. I just have to come up with an idea for a new tide. Ken, you're not healed yet. I haven't played that save since you guys saw it last, because I don't just want to play the game and not have my audience be there for it. So no, you are still lying critically wounded in the edict as it is. Yeah, so I know Levi's local. Dude, you should sign up for the RoseHammer GT if you can. It's at Lloyd Center, so not too far away, and we can go home and sleep at night, which will be nice. In our own beds. Yeah. With that said, I think I'm gonna sign off. I'll give you guys like 30 more seconds for questions. Keeping in mind I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But yeah, the new Horse Lord for Guard looks really, really good. It'll be really funny to have like tanks and psychically attuned, Ceramite wearing super soldiers next to a dude on horseback, but it's 40k, so. If you soup, you lose access to tides and you lose access to your Grey Knight secondaries. That's why we'd lose tides. And the tides are good, but into most matchups, they're not like game-breakingly good. Like they're not so good you wouldn't soup ever. They're really good into the demons matchup specifically though. Like for real and for true. Tide of Banishment is reroll 1s to hit and 1s to wound against demons for your entire army. And that's absolutely bonkers. That's a like 30% efficiency increase across your whole army or something like that. But yeah, pineapple on pizza, not my fave. If there's pizza at an event and that's what's left, I'll eat it. But I'm more of a deep dish. Like if Papa Murphy's, we're big into like the chicken bacon artichoke and the cowboy, which is like mushroom, sausage, and black olives. I think there's and pepperoni, I think. So I'm more of the combo kind of guy. Pineapple's not my fave in most things. I'm not a sweets dude. I like savory, not sweet. You managed Papa Murphy, so I should ping you about that because you've probably got some crazy stories. Drunk kids and such. But now we are way off from 40k. So I'll let you all go. Like, comment, subscribe, share, pass this on, talk to your friends, let them know about me. And of course, don't forget, call your mother.